delay. With us is Mr. Innovation, Saul Kaplan. Thanks again to Dante Bellini for coming in. Congratulations to RDW on their Emmy. Lots of things going on, in the world of innovation and sending some huge repercussions kind of through the world. I think people are starting to really think about what the implications of this Amazon purchase is and what the implications are for retail and for job loss.
Well, we're starting to see the human implications and what it means for folks in local communities as Amazon and other online retailers have been disrupting the bricks and mortar local approach. It's one thing to think about that as a business strategy,
right.
Who's the winners and losers in that.
Sure.
But one of the big losers are people who depend on retail jobs for their livelihoods. And there are lots and lots of them. Right? I think I saw this week that, we've been talking a lot about how many people might lose their jobs or have lost their jobs in coal country.
Right.
The whole separate conversation. But maybe 70,000 people lost their jobs versus 4.5 million people who have lost their jobs across the country. And this has hit local communities everywhere. So it's real now. Like, how does innovation affect us, and what can we do to help people that have been disrupted and help them get back on their feet? And as important, how do we help people so that they're more ready for the continued, because we haven't seen the last of it as this stuff continues.
No, absolutely. A little bit, we saw, got announced last week, Sears announced another bunch of store closings, and one of them was in one of the two Warwick malls.
I saw that.
And I don't know what the total job implication was, but significant, 80 or 100 jobs. It used to be we lamented the loss of manufacturing, and we said these poor people go from a solid wage manufacturing and they're going to have to go get a lesser paying job in retail. That was sort of the demise of that individual. Where does that retail person go? That was that entry-level job into the workforce that could then turn into a bit of a profession. You could be there if you wanted to and move up over 20 or 30 years, maybe shift from retailer to retailer. They're physically not in the same place as where their replacement jobs are in technology. Which are generally city-based.
And the skill sets are very different, and this is the sad part, right? It's a workforce that that we can debate underemployed. If they're in retail over the long haul. No, it's not that some people don't rise to management in retail. That's true, and those can be great jobs. But the overwhelming majority of people that work in any of the stores that we go into are entry-level jobs. Now, let's look at the positive side of that. It's important to have an entry-level job, to get into the workforce, to learn what it means to perform in the workforce, and to show up on time, and all the stuff. So I love the fact that we have entry-level work, but there needs to be a ladder for a way to advance in your career, to learn new skills and to advance, so that you could start to make decent wages, so that you could support your family. And a lot of people who work in retail end up having 2-3 jobs in order to cobble together enough money, just to be able to, particularly here in the Northeast, to be able to make a living. So you're right. I mean, here in Rhode Island, you read some of these retail outlets go out, and this weekend it was Sears. And those aren't just retail jobs. You think about Sears, this is an iconic retailer. I don't know about you, I'm old.
Oh God,
I mean, we used to look at the Sears catalog.
It was the biggest, when it came for Christmas when you were a little kid.
Go through the pictures, circle what we wanted for the holiday.
100%, absolutely.
And it's where you went. And to see it now going out of business, like, what happened? Well, they didn't innovate. They didn't understand that the customer experience was changing. They didn't know that new technologies could help them create different relationships with their customers. They didn't move fast enough to new ways to deliver value to customers. And now they're Netflix.
That's right.
They're Amazon.
Well, think what they did to other retailers when they created a catalog that went to every home in the country,
Yeah.
right? So that must have been a little disruptive impact
Absolutely.
for, Tom's Trading Post in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, Sears is hitting every single one of your customers with this beautiful big catalog that got delivered through the mail.
Yeah.
So where does the workforce go? I graduate from a community college or graduate from high school, get a GED. Not a lot of, the number of options as to where you can go and get employed looks like
Yep.
it's getting narrower and narrower.
Well, the first thing, let's look at both the supply side, or how we educate and create platforms, even as an adult, to continue to reinvent yourself and to learn new skills and new capabilities.
Right.
And then we can come back and talk about the demand side and where the jobs come from. And of course, there's a great chicken and egg argument here.
Sure.
Right? If Rhode Island had deeper and broader skills that were relevant to the kinds of jobs that get created in the 21st century,
Right.
that the argument for coming and locating here would be stronger and there would be more demand. But that is a long-term strategy that requires looking really hard at our education system, at our workforce development system. You would think that those two would be one and the same and that they would link together and be integrated.
Right.
It's surprisingly disconnected, right? These are the folks interested in education, and even that's siloed.
Yep.
Here's the K through 12, here's how we think about community college, here's how we think about four-year colleges, and there are lots of attempts to try to bring that together in a system approach. But it still operates very much like a silo. But we need to strengthen every aspect of that. Education and workforce development, tune to, first of all, let's fix the problem for youth before they come into the workforce.
Well, that was going to be my point. My point is, okay, reinventing our education system with the speed in which education gets changed is not the short-term answer, right? That's a 10 to 20-year answer. In a matter of months,
Right.
tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of retail workers are going to lose their jobs.
Right.
Where do they go?
Well, so we work on the future through our education.
Sure.
We work today through workforce development. What are the platforms, tools, programs, internships? How do we operate like a system, which in Rhode Island, we should be able to do because of our size.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be terribly hard to identify every Rhode Islander by name
Yeah,
that's
right.
either
We know them all,
underemployed
right.
or unemployed. Well, you'd think we do, but travel around and ask all the different stakeholder groups whether they actually have visibility to who are the folks that we need to target, who are the
Right.
customers for this system. And this is what I mean by the fragmentation. I don't think there's a holistic view of who these people are. Never mind by name, creating a relationship, figuring out how to customize the support and the programs for each individual. Now, if you try to tackle that problem in California,
Right.
you're talking about tens of millions of people.
Well, and I
in
know-
Rhode Island, it's a number that we can wrap our mind around. Why aren't we the best in the country at building a system that integrates all of the identification, engagement,
Well,
development, training?
I think you make a great point there, and we were talking about it earlier today and here. No one here has heard one word from any elected official talking about the potential and what the strategies are for helping people lose their job in retail.
Yeah.
It is going to be the biggest impact. Healthcare is obviously right there
Could be another
too.
one.
We have two major industries under severe distress and reinvention,
Right.
financial constraints, and we're not hearing a lot of narrative about what we're going to do to help those folks out and get them back into the workforce. The numbers were from Care New England. The numbers change every minute from Care New England, I'll also say. But the numbers from Care New England that they provided us was roughly about 2,000 jobs have been lost over there as a group. over the past couple of
Right.
years, which is more than Rhode Island has added in the past 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
So you're losing jobs
Right.
in healthcare faster than you can create them at GE or Johnson &
Yeah.
Johnson or anything
But
else.
healthcare is one of the success stories.
Yeah.
It's created a lot of jobs.
Absolutely.
And a lot of really good paying jobs with ladders that allow people to move up. A lot of the education system has rallied around that, creating new credentialing programs and licensing programs, for people to kind of move into some of those tracks.
Absolutely.
And so that's a really good thing. Yeah, you're right. There's some of the transition we're going to go through now in healthcare. But the truth is that people that work in healthcare
Yeah.
here, they will be employable.
Yeah,
Those
that's right,
people
right.
will be employable. We're not
Right.
talking about people that worked at the Sears that need to go find another retail job,
Yeah.
or try to figure out how
Well,
to ratchet
there's
up.
an interesting piece, just go back to retail, there's an interesting piece in the New York Times and a track where retail job losses are and where these replacement jobs that are coming through
Right.
online companies. And the online companies are, for the most part, Fall River's Amazon was one of the ones held out as an exception. But for the most part, they're very urban
Yep.
and in fairly wealthy, thriving areas. They're in a Boston, they're in an Austin, Texas. This is where the smart people are coming together and disrupting.
Right.
And the job losses are, in one case that they use as an example is, poor Jonestown, Pennsylvania, which has been, clobbered by every possible thing over the last 100 and something years, whether it was a flood that killed 3,000 or 4,000 people to the loss of manufacturing, and now kind of a store-by-store examination of what's happening to their retail and where those jobs are. And there's not a lot of options in Jonestown, Pennsylvania to go get another job.
And these people are particularly vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because of their skills. But let's start reframing what somebody who's really good in retail knows how to do.
Right,
If
absolutely.
you think about being able to deliver an inspiring customer experience, right? They're the front lines. They're the people we see when we go into any of these stores.
100%.
Right? If
Great
they-
on customer relationship, sometimes excellent salespeople, sometimes unbelievably good up salespeople,
Right.
right? They get you want
Right.
that washer
But if you
before
have,
the time
so
you
you
walk
know where
out.
I'm headed with this, right? If
Right.
you have those skills,
Yeah.
and you're really good at that, and you can demonstrate that, there are lots and lots of industries who need motivated people who can inspire their customers,
Yeah.
right? So we need to be able to think about this not as just these are the retail jobs. These are the frontline jobs of delivering a customer experience. And in the 21st century, we still need to deliver compelling customer experiences everywhere we go. And you hear people all the time in these companies lamenting that they can't find good work,
Yeah,
good
that's right.
workers to be able to do this. So how do we help people reposition themselves? So today they work in a retail store. They got better and better at delivering customer experience in a compelling way. And now they're pitching themselves as someone who can do that in another context.
Absolutely.
Right? And
Yep.
so we should be helping people do that. We should be helping them practice it, role play it, getting more confident about how to pitch that and where to pitch that. There's lots of ways we can try to help folks, get, and it is both a confidence builder, extending their skills, getting people to see that their skills aren't just for the narrow purpose, that their current job defines.
Let's jump over from retail and jump over to our favorite, I believe it is our favorite topic.
I think so.
It is the disruption of transportation in America and Uber. And we've seen Uber somewhat suspend their CEO, fire their CEO, and now have become maybe the cuddliest company in the world with a number of initiatives, especially to retain their drivers. I don't know if you've been following
see
this, but
this
it's
week,
two
yeah.
major things. One was that drivers can cancel
Yeah.
the order very, very quickly in 2 minutes.
Right.
So they don't have to wait around in front of the house. They used to have to wait
Right.
at your business or your home for up to 5 minutes before they could cancel
Yeah.
it without penalty. And then the other major change on behalf of drivers is tipping. And
Saw
both those things are to the detriment of the rider, to the consumer
Oh, that's
who's
right.
paying the bill, and creates a lot of pressure on the rider on both accounts. Are they moving? So let's talk about the demise of the CEO.
Well, I think it's pretty interesting.
He's not coming back.
Well, everybody was paying attention to Travis Kalanick and the firing the CEO. They're going to do everything they can do to reposition their brand, to keep the goodwill that they built around their solution. And as you know from our past conversations, it didn't surprise me at all that investors and board members, turned on the CEO.
Right.
So that's behind them now. There was a little bit of a backlash, from some folks who were supporting him, but I think that's done. And so now, this week, under the radar comes this idea that they were going to put tipping in place.
Yeah.
Now, I think you're absolutely right. As a customer of Uber, one of my most favorite parts of the Uber experience is knowing that I get in the car, I get out of the car, nobody,
Right.
I don't have to take my charge card out.
Right.
I don't have to see that silly thing that says 10%, 15%,
Right.
20%. Like, the cost of the ride is the cost of the ride. And I'm a huge proponent of that. I love that part of the experience.
Yeah.
However, they were getting enormous pushback from the drivers, right? Because Lyft, the competitor,
Correct.
that started to take a little bit of share from Uber,
Yeah.
taking advantage of this problem that they had with the CEO, right? They have tipping.
Right.
So drivers, if given a choice of to pick up someone on Lyft or pick up someone at Uber, they know they're going to get a tip, right? Which means they're going to get a bigger chunk of the money that gets paid, than Uber is.
Right.
Right? And than they are if they take a ride with Uber. But that's at the expense of my experience.
Yeah.
So now we're going to see what that trade-off is. Of course, you have to do both things. You have to compel drivers to be able to make the trips and pick up riders with the Uber app.
Yeah.
But you also have to incent me to continue to do that. So now it'll be interesting to see when they add tipping.
Yeah.
Right? And this is what a business model does.
Yeah.
It balances the capabilities you need, the stakeholders in the business model, with an economic model that works. And we'll see how much of a hit they take by putting tipping, in.
Yeah, I think it's actually going to fuel Lyft's growth.
Sure.
Because now it's even Steven, so
Right.
why not try Lyft? Because
Yep.
they lost their competitive advantage as a. Listen, I almost don't care what the price is. I really don't want to be tipping.
No, I don't either.
On this.
I feel the same way at a restaurant too, by the way. Like, I like
Yeah.
these restaurants that experiment
Right.
with, like, the price of the meal is the price of the meal.
Portland-
Pay the people a fair and decent wage for the role that they play, and stop with this model where I pay the bill and then I got to add more money. Like,
Well, and it's a
like,
no-win.
it's
You
crazy.
know, the server might have been spectacular, and the kitchen might have been a disaster, and you're left in this situation.
Customers don't like it.
No,
Right?
no.
Customers don't like it, but here's the thing. It's hard to change once you have a system or model in place.
Right.
And so those innovators, those restaurants that are saying, we know customers would prefer to pay a flat price for
Yeah.
the meal and know that all the people working in that restaurant were paid good wages to deliver that experience.
Portland,
to them, right?
Oregon's got a
Yeah.
growing number of restaurants that are getting away from tipping
Right.
and then paying servers $20 an hour.
No, well, that's what you have to do.
Right.
Right, because we can't possibly keep paying servers,
Right.
sub-minimum wage.
Right.
And
Or
it's-
even minimum
Which
wage,
is
you
why
won't.
why we have to tip in the first place. But Uber is going to be faced with the same thing. And my message is the innovator's job is never done.
Correct.
The minute you have something that works, you better be
There's
thinking
so much
about
pressure
what's
on us.
next. Right?
Let me tell
we
ya.
have to be able to reinvent ourselves, our businesses, our institutions, and our communities, and innovation has to be a steady progress theme, because no matter what you do today that feels innovative, it isn't tomorrow. So you better keep
That-
going.
For one pause. Molly, is that Go Local space station done yet, please? Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
You promised me a space station, and all you gave me was an online.
yeah, that's right. No, it's absolutely true. And part of it too, as you know, because you've done it, as well as anybody in this state, is creating a culture in which no one is satisfied with what you're doing right here and now.
Right.
Like, last year's BIF summit was spectacular. How do we make it
Doesn't
better?
matter.
Right.
Doesn't matter to the people that will be at the summit this year.
Right.
Right. Doesn't matter to our team members who it's all about the experience today.
Right.
If we started to rest on our laurels, right, we wouldn't deliver the best we could, right, and our customer experience wouldn't be as
Well,
good
think
as
about
could
it.
be. There's
You
no-
got ranked the second best business meeting in the United States by Inc. magazine. So first and foremost, as a competitive person, there's one ahead of you.
Yeah.
And by the way, the 8 behind you in the top 10 are all looking to take your position.
Yes, well, but I
no
will
two
tell
ways
you,
about it.
this is just the way I'm wired.
Yeah.
And I think it's common amongst people who are always about innovation, is I worry less about how we're ranked.
Yeah.
And I worry more about every single person that touches us, that comes to our
Absolutely.
summit, that does project work with us. I want to know that we delivered a compelling experience and the outcomes, and I want to know that we did it better and differently than others could. How different people rank us or don't rank us, I don't worry that much about. And they'll play that here at the state level. We're obsessed with these rankings, right? As if that's the way to measure our success. How about we decide what's the experience we're going to deliver to our citizens? How are we going to make Rhode Island more competitive? How about we define the game and actually make progress against it instead of trying to play the game that everyone else is playing? I mean, I've said many times, if you're 50th, 48th, 47th on the list, are you going to claim victory because now we're 45th on the list? I wanted to redefine the game.
But here's the problem, right? It's a competitive landscape. So when you're competing for 400 jobs from even CVS,
Okay.
right? CVS is here. They opened up an innovation
Yep.
office. They opened it in Boston. Wouldn't you like to be ranked? Wouldn't you like Rhode Island ranked
Yeah, but
number 1 for innovation?
Yes, but I look at all those lists, particularly those innovation lists, and how they measure innovation. The measurements they use are all about what I call the inputs. How many patents, how many startups, like they're inputs to innovation. We should change the game. We should make the innovation metric how we ranked in the country for the fastest path to the new way to deliver healthcare, the new way
Right.
to deliver education.
Right.
That takes advantage of our size. Now, those innovation tables that get published, they don't have a metric for that, right? If we play the game against the metrics that are competing with states that are bigger and have more resources than us, we lose. If we redefine the game and say, wait a minute, here's the unmet need, here's what we could be the best at, and actually deliver that, you will watch our economy improve. You will watch companies come here because we gave them a strategic reason to come here. You think they're going to come here because we have the most incentives to give them? We did last year,
Yeah,
not
right.
so much this year,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
So the stuff that's in the toolkit.
We were high ranked
Right.
on most
Well, I don't know if we
incentives
were
out
high
there.
ranked, but we weren't
Per
48th
capita, we
anymore.
were, yeah, right.
We moved up a couple of spots.
But if
for 1 year.
if we change all these measurements, are we going to have to give up our number 1 position for hamburgers? Because we usually rank very, very well for hamburgers.
Well, we have a great food scene here for our size, and it's one of the.
But you know what?
strategic
Aaron
assets.
Wren was in, and Aaron Wren, did I mention this to you? Aaron Wren says, listen, when
Yeah.
Providence made it to the top of sort of the small city restaurant list, fueled by Al Forno and some others,
Yep.
most mid-sized, smaller cities didn't have very good food. The Applebee's. He
Right.
said, Providence has got to realize every mid-sized city has great restaurants now. That's
Right.
not, you can't, it's almost impossible to win that game. It might be easier to win any number of other things. I want to touch about one other thing, and then we've got to clear the way. We probably have to, gold something to make him comfortable while sitting here, the money man. But DMV is going under a new structure, and they're putting in new technology. And I've never seen a switch over from one technology platform to the other in which they are setting expectations functionally so low. They've pretty much announced that our system will not work, you cannot do anything, and you need to reserve time to come in to do the most basic things.
Yeah.
Is this...
Well, the pendulum swung too far the other way. They got such a spanking on the last set of systems that now they have to play the expectations game because they really have to win on this latest.
But how do you win?
So
It
well,
just- it
well,
doesn't
one way
burst
you win
into
is by
flames?
lowering the bar and setting.
You've
modest
announced that it won't
expectations.
work, and you
Right.
cannot do DMV business for some undeterminable period of time.
Right.
How much lower could you possibly say than we can't switch over from one system to another?
Well, you're talking about the DMV stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, you've heard me say this before. I know we're at the end of this process. It started way before this administration. But you're never going to convince me that with 50 states, I don't know how many DMVs there are, maybe there's more than 50, around the country, that they're all so different that we had to build our own system from scratch.
No.
Like, why can't this stuff live up in the cloud and put a custom kind of front end on it, to interface with Rhode Island citizens and drivers? If we had done that, we could roll out new functionality on an ongoing basis
Listen, we
without
have
having
30
to have these huge budgets for systems building. I just don't understand the model that we're using for these large capability sets. And by the time we go through all the pain of releasing it, and you're right, and we could do a better job of how we do that, we have to start working on the next rev of the system right away. We need a better way.
Well,
to build these capabilities.
Government's got a problem right now, which industry, most private sector businesses have learned is you don't do a website and then do another website. You constantly are advancing your tech.
Updating.
Yeah, you're constantly transforming. You're constantly improving.
But the big
It's
shift
not-
that's happened that's equal in magnitude to what we talked about in retail. If you watch how enterprises are accessing capabilities and IT systems, they are moving to the cloud.
Yeah,
the
totally.
old days
Right.
of having this huge IT organization, all the capital, all the systems builders. I remember I was a senior partner at Accenture. We had teams that were doing this work. Right now, this is all
Right.
moving to the cloud, and when it's in the cloud, you don't need
Right.
all the big budgets to build the systems, and you can focus more on what the capabilities do for you. You can pay for them as you're using them, and they can get updated behind the scenes, and you don't have to do what we're going through here. So I don't know why we don't do more of that in the public services space.
Yeah.
Right? It's really vulnerable to being disrupted that way, and we could save a lot of political pain and cost to the taxpayer if we thought about a different approach to these things.
I want to thank you.
You're
Covered a lot, fast and furious as always. We'll see you. We're going to be off next Monday because it's
Holiday.
July 3rd. We're going to give you the
All
day
right.
off on July 3rd.
Good.
And we know you'll come back rested and tan and all that kind of stuff. Last question. Last was former Patriot lineman. Was a new announcement. Do we have any other big announcements?
Well, I
or-
did talk with Richard Saul Werman this past week. He was here in Rhode Island for something, and he didn't. Luckily for me, he didn't sneak out with us without us having a drink and something to eat. And so I got the chance to catch up with him, and his new book called Understanding Understanding. This is the guy who founded TED.
Right.
This is the guy who's written 80 books. He's a
In your world,
design
he's a
icon.
rock star.
He is, well, he's an icon. He is more designers have learned from him. He is so compelling. He pushes every button you can imagine.
And he's
makes you
coming.
uncomfortable, but he really helps you see situations differently.
He's coming?
And he's coming.
Will you have to move to Gillette like
and
you
so
two and
he'll be here
put
for
together
the
50,
summit
60,000?
in September. He's been several times before, and I'm so glad he's coming this time. He's going to show off his new book.
Right.
And we're excited to have him.
Great.
Josh.
Thank you so
very
much.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate it as